Subscribe now, because what you're about to read will prove that sometimes your worst moment becomes the doorway to your best life. A 28-year-old cardiac nurse, who spent 12 months rebuilding herself after betrayal, attends her ex-boyfriend's wedding determined to prove she's moved on, only to be publicly humiliated by the vindictive bride in front of 200 guests. She's alone, mortified, seconds from fleeing in tears. Then the millionaire groomsman, tall, successful, with eyes that see straight through her brave facade, steps in with the most unexpected rescue. He kisses her, claims she's his girlfriend, and proceeds to give her ex exactly what he deserves. This story has a stranger who becomes a shield when you need it most. The excruciating tension of fake dating someone who makes your heart race for real. A man who sees your strength when everyone else sees your wounds. And an ending that proves sometimes the person who saves you from your past is the one who walks into your future. Don't miss how one wedding, one kiss, and one extraordinary act of kindness can rewrite everything you thought you knew about second chances. Lena Warziniak pushed through the heavy glass doors of University Hospital and took a deep breath of fresh afternoon air. After a 12-hour shift in the cardiology ward, her feet ached in white shoes, and her shoulders carried the tension of a particularly difficult day. The sky over Chicago was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the late summer breeze carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from street vendors near Millennium Park. She walked toward the bus stop, adjusting the bag on her shoulder. Her hands still trembled slightly, a delayed reaction to the afternoon's emergency when they'd almost lost a patient. But he survived. Always that quiet relief that only other healthcare workers fully understood. Lena, wait! She turned and saw Katie, her colleague and best friend, running toward her with a worried expression. What happened? Lena asked, frowning. Katie stopped in front of her, catching her breath. Did you get this? She pulled out a cream envelope with gold details. Lena took the envelope, turning it in her hands. Her name was written in elegant calligraphy. When she opened it and saw the wedding invitation, her stomach twisted. Bradley Kowalski and Natalie Lewis cordially invite you to celebrate their union. Damn, Lena muttered, feeling blood rush to her face. You can't go, Katie said firmly, gripping her arm. This is cruel. Why is he even inviting you? Lena bit her lower lip, staring at the invitation. Bradley, her boyfriend of 3 years who'd left her exactly 22 months ago for Natalie, a marketing intern at the firm where he worked. The betrayal had been like a punch to the gut, discovering it through an undeleted message, seeing photos of them together, listening to his empty apologies. Maybe this is his way of closing that chapter, Lena suggested, though her own voice sounded uncertain. Or his way of showing he found someone better, Katie shot back with brutal pragmatism. Don't go, Lena, please. But something in Lena, pride, stubbornness, or maybe just exhaustion from being seen as a victim, made her fold the invitation and put it in her purse. I'll go, she said calmly. I won't give him the satisfaction of thinking I'm still hurting over it. Katie sighed deeply, shaking her head. You're stubborn as a mule. But if you really have to go, at least take someone with you. You can't go alone. I don't have anyone to take, Katie, Lena replied quietly. All our mutual friends chose his side, and I'm not going to beg anyone to pretend to be my boyfriend for one evening. Then I'll go with you. You weren't invited, and besides, you have a shift Saturday. Katie opened her mouth to protest but knew Lena was right. Instead, she hugged her friend tightly. You're the bravest person I know, or the stupidest. I haven't decided yet. Lena smiled weakly. Maybe both. Saturday, wedding day, 3 p.m. Holy Name Cathedral in the heart of downtown Chicago rose majestically under a cloudless blue sky. Lena arrived deliberately 15 minutes late, dressed in a simple but elegant navy dress that highlighted her light brown eyes. She'd spent all morning trying to convince herself everything was fine, but her sweaty palms clutching her small evening bag betrayed her. The church interior was decorated with white, flowers, and candles. Lena slipped into a pew in the back rows, avoiding familiar glances. She recognized a few faces, former mutual friends who'd naturally sided with Bradley after the breakup. The music began, and Natalie entered, radiant in a stunning lace gown. There was no denying it. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair and a slender figure. Lena felt the familiar pang of inadequacy, but took a deep breath and maintained a neutral expression. The ceremony was long. Lena forced herself to remain unmoved as they exchanged vows, as Bradley kissed the bride, as everyone applauded. She clapped too, mechanically, counting the minutes until she could leave. But then came the announcement of the reception at a nearby ballroom, and Lena realized her mistake. She'd checked the RSVP box without thinking about the real consequences of spending hours at a party with these people. The Peninsula Hotel Ballroom, 5 p.m. The hall was spacious and elegant, with crystal chandeliers and tables, decorated with white roses and gold candles. Lena found her name at a table in the back. Of course, not at a place of honor. She sat with people she didn't know, an older couple who seemed to be distant relatives, and a solitary woman who immediately buried herself in her phone. Music played softly in the background, and waiters circulated with trays of champagne. Lena took a glass more to have something to hold than from any desire to drink. Her eyes involuntarily sought Bradley at the main table. He looked happy, laughing at something the best man said, a tall man with dark brown hair in an impeccable charcoal suit. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" asked an older man, indicating the chair next to her. "Yes, please," Lena replied politely. Mr. Wojciech, as he introduced himself, turned out to be the bride's uncle. He was kind and chatty, which Lena accepted gratefully. At least she didn't have to sit in awkward silence. But the relief was short-lived. As guests began taking their seats for dinner, Natalie took the microphone. Her voice was sweet and melodious. "Thank you all for coming on this special day," she began, her smile dazzling. "Bradley and I are so happy to share our love with our closest friends and family." Applause. Lena clapped too, her face frozen in a polite smile. "I'd like to especially thank a few people," Natalie continued, listing parents, bridesmaids, groomsmen, and then her gaze landed on Lena. "And of course, I'd like to thank Lena Warziniak for coming today," Natalie said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I know this must have been difficult for you, Lena, but it means so much that you could take a day off from work to see how happy Bradley is now." The room fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to Lena. Her face burned. This wasn't a thank you. This was a public, humiliating remark disguised as a nice gesture. Bradley placed a hand on Natalie's shoulder, saying something quietly, but Natalie continued, undaunted. "We really admire your courage, Lena. Not every woman could come alone to her ex's wedding." She smiled widely. "But like they say, true love always wins, right?" Lena felt her throat tightening. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor. A few people giggled nervously. Others looked embarrassed. But Natalie looked triumphant. Mr. Wojciech next to Lena muttered under his breath. That was unnecessary. Lena swallowed hard, fighting tears that threatened release. She wouldn't give them that. Satisfaction. Not now. She raised her champagne glass in a silent toast and took a long sip, ignoring the burning shame that flooded her body. Natalie finally handed back the microphone, and dinner was served. But Lena could barely eat. Every bite seemed like ash in her mouth. She chatted politely with Mr. Wojciech, but her mind screamed for her to escape. An hour later, when dancing began, Lena decided enough was enough. She took her purse and discreetly headed toward the restroom, planning to slip out the back exit. But as she walked down the hallway, she heard familiar voices around the corner. Did you see her face? It was Natalie's voice, full of malicious joy. "I thought she'd cry." "Natalie, that was too much," Bradley replied, but his voice lacked real conviction. "Too much? She needed to see reality, Bradley. You were never happy with her. She was too ordinary, too boring. You deserve someone like me." Lena clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. Ordinary. Boring. The words stabbed her like knives. "I know," Bradley said quietly. "You're right." That was all Lena needed to hear. She turned quickly and almost ran back toward the ballroom, her vision blurred by tears that finally broke free. Not looking where she was going, she crashed straight into someone. Strong hands caught her shoulders, stabilizing her. "I'm sorry, she began, looking up. It was the best man, that tall man from the main table. Up close, he was even more striking, with captivating blue-gray eyes that now looked at her with genuine concern. "Are you okay?" he asked in a deep, calm voice. Lena quickly wiped her eyes. "Yes, I have to go." But before she could step away, Natalie and Bradley appeared around the corner, stopping when they saw them together. Natalie's gaze narrowed. "Lena, is everything all right?" And in that moment, in that one strangely elongated moment, the best man did something completely unexpected. He looked at Lena, then back at the couple, and smiled. "Everything's great," he said smoothly. "I was just taking my girlfriend out for some fresh air. Right, sweetheart?" And before Lena could react, before she could comprehend what was happening, he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was unexpected, gentle, and completely stunning. Lena froze, her mind spinning in chaos. Who was this man? Why was he kissing her? What was actually happening? But his lips were warm and certain, and his hand on her waist was stabilizing, almost protective. When he pulled back, he leaned closer to her ear and whispered so quietly only she could hear, "Trust me, it's okay, sweetheart." His blue-gray eyes held her gaze with an intensity that said more than words. This was an act of kindness, an act of rescue. And Lena, in her wounded, humiliated desperation, grabbed onto that lifeline like a drowning person. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling only slightly. "Everything's fine." He turned back to Natalie and Bradley with a casual, confident smile. "Sorry for the confusion. Lena mentioned she was feeling a bit overwhelmed by the crowd, so I thought some fresh air would help." Natalie's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, disbelief, and then something that looked suspiciously like jealousy. "Your girlfriend," she repeated, her voice sharp. "Yes," he said calmly, moving his hand from Lena's waist to her hand, intertwining their fingers together in a gesture that looked naturally intimate. "Lena and I have been together for, how long is it now, honey?" 4 months, Lena swallowed, her mind working feverishly. 5, she said, her voice stronger now. 5 months. "Of course. 5 months, he repeated, smiling at her with tenderness that looked amazingly authentic. "Sorry, sweetheart. I lose track of time when I'm with you. Every day blurs into perfect happiness." Bradley looked completely surprised. "Damien, you didn't mention—" "I haven't mentioned a lot of things, Bradley," Damien interrupted. His, tone still friendly, but with a slight sharp edge. "I've been busy, work, travel, and now Lena. My life's pretty full these days." Natalie crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing as she studied Lena. "This is fascinating. Lena, you didn't mention a boyfriend when you confirmed your attendance." Lena raised her chin, feeling a surge of courage from the warmth of Damien's hand in hers. "I didn't feel the need to share my personal life with you, Natalie. After all, we're practically strangers." It was true, and everyone knew it. Natalie clenched her jaw. "Besides," Lena continued, her confidence growing with each word, "I wanted to keep our relationship private. Damien is very important to me. I didn't want him to become the subject of gossip." Damien squeezed her hand lightly, a sign of approval. "We always protect what's most important to us," he said warmly, looking at her in a way that made her cheeks flush. The bride and groom exchanged glances. Bradley looked confused while Natalie looked furious under her forced smile. "Well, that's wonderful news," Natalie finally said through clenched teeth. "I'm so glad you found happiness, Lena. Though I must admit I'm surprised. Damien is, well, very different from your usual type." The implication was clear. How could someone like Lena be with someone like Damien? But before Lena could respond, Damien laughed. A deep, genuine sound. Opposites attract, as they say. But honestly, it's not opposites that brought us together. It's Lena's compassion, her intelligence, the way she cares for others. Those are rare traits in my world. He looked at her again, and there was something in his eyes, something that looked almost sincere. "I'm the happiest man here today. And it's not because I'm a groomsman." Lena's heart pounded. She knew this was all a game, a performance. But the way he looked at her made her almost believe it for a moment. Natalie opened her mouth to say something more, but Bradley placed a hand on her shoulder. "We should get back to the guests," he said quietly. "Of course," Damien agreed. "We don't want to monopolize the bride and groom. Congratulations again. It's a beautiful ceremony." As the couple walked away, Lena felt tension flowing out of her body in one long wave. Her legs began to shake. Damien immediately noticed. "Come," he said quietly, leading her toward a quiet corner by a large window overlooking the illuminated garden. "Sit for a moment." She sank into a small armchair, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. I don't know what just happened." Damien sat in the chair across from her, leaning forward with his hands clasped between his knees. "I should apologize. I kissed you without permission. That was wrong. But I saw how she looked at you during dinner. I saw your face, and then when you crashed into me, you were crying." Lena quickly wiped her cheeks, even though the tears had long since dried. "I wasn't crying." "Okay," he said gently. "You weren't crying, but something hurt you, and I thought maybe I could help." "Why?" she asked, looking at him directly. "You don't even know me." Damien took a deep breath, leaning back in his chair. "You're right. I don't know you, but I recognize cruelty when I see it. And what Natalie did during her speech was cruel. No one deserves public humiliation, especially not at their ex's wedding." His honesty was disarming. Lena felt the tension in her shoulders loosening. "I'm Lena," she said, quietly. "But you already know that." "Damien Dombrowski," he introduced himself formally, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you, Lena. Properly." She shook his hand, unable to stop a small smile. "Nice to meet you too, Damien. And thank you for whatever that was." "That was a rescue," he said plainly. "And maybe the beginning of a mutually beneficial arrangement." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Mutually beneficial arrangement." Damien stood, putting his hands in his pockets. "Listen, I saw how they were looking at you. Natalie and Bradley feel bad about what they did to you, but not bad enough to stop hurting you. If you go back there alone, they'll continue. They'll believe they've won." "But," Lena began, "but if you go back there with me as your boyfriend, everything changes," he finished. "Suddenly you're not the lonely, pathetic ex-girlfriend. You're a happy woman who moved on with someone who clearly values you." Lena shook her head, her mind spinning. "This is crazy. We can't just pretend." "Why not?" he interrupted. "It's one evening, Lena. A few hours. We stay. We eat dinner. Maybe we dance once or twice. We show them you're fine, that you don't need their pity or their condescending looks, and then we can go our separate ways and never see each other again if you want." It sounded so simple, so absurdly simple. But could she do it? Could she pretend for a few hours that she was happy, loved, valued? "What do you get out of this?" she asked suspiciously. Damien smiled, a slow, sad smile. "Maybe I like being a hero once in a while. Or maybe I'm bored with conversations about business and real estate. Or maybe," he hesitated, "maybe I see in you someone who deserves better, and I want to help fix that, even if only for one evening." Something in his voice, the honesty, the uncertainty, made Lena believe him. Against all sense, against every cautious bone in her body, she believed him. "Okay," she said quietly. "One evening, but we need to establish ground. Rules." Damien sat back down, leaning forward with interest. "I'm listening." "First, no more kissing without warning," she said firmly, ignoring how her cheeks flushed again. "If you need to touch me, let me know beforehand." "Fair," he agreed. "Second, we need to establish our story. How we met, how long we've been together. Things people might ask." "Good idea," he nodded. "We met at the hospital. I came to visit a business partner who had a heart attack. You were his nurse." Lena blinked. "How did you know I'm a nurse?" "Mr. Wojcik mentioned it at the table," he explained. "He said you're a cardiac nurse at University Hospital. I have a good memory." "Okay," she said slowly. "We met at the hospital 5 months ago. You asked me if I could recommend a good restaurant nearby. I gave you some suggestions. Then you ran into me at one of those restaurants a week later and invited me for coffee." Damien smiled. "I see you have a talent for improvisation." "I'm a nurse," she shrugged. "Thinking on your feet is part of the job description." "What else?" he asked. "Our first real date was at a cafe. Let's say Goddess and the baker in the loop," she continued, getting into the role despite herself. "We talked for 3 hours. We discovered we both love old classic films and long walks along the lakeshore. I actually do love long walks along the lakeshore," he said quietly. Lena looked at him, surprised. "Really?" "Really," he confirmed. "Especially at dusk. Something about the way the light reflects off the water, the way the city slows down for a moment." There was something in his voice, melancholy, longing, that made Lena's heart tighten. Damien, she began carefully, are you running from something today too? For a moment, his mask dropped, and she saw something raw and real in his eyes. But then he smiled, and it was back, the polite, confident facade. Maybe we're all running from something, he said lightly. But today, let's run together. What do you say? Lena took a deep breath. Third, she said. Once this evening ends, we go back to being strangers. No commitments, no expectations. Something flashed across his face, perhaps disappointment, but he nodded. Agreed. He extended his hand. Lena looked at it, then back at his face. Finally, she placed her hand in his. Partners for one evening, she said. Partners, he agreed, his grip warm and firm. As they stood and returned to the ballroom together, Damien's hand rested lightly on her lower. Back. Lena felt a strange swirl of emotions. Fear, excitement, disbelief. But underneath it all, something else. A tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this crazy plan would actually work. Natalie and Bradley were watching them from the main table. Several other guests had also taken notice. But now, with Damien at her side, Lena didn't feel like a target. She felt protected. Ready? Damien whispered as they approached their table. Lena raised her chin and smiled. The first genuine smile of the evening. Ready, she replied. The orchestra began playing a slower melody, and several couples started filling the dance floor. Lena sat at her table with Damien, trying to look natural, but her heart still beat fast. Mr. Wojciech had long since returned to conversation with his wife, leaving Lena and Damien in their own little bubble of pretend intimacy. So, Damien began quietly, leaning closer so only she could hear. Tell me something true about yourself. If we're going to be convincing, I should know more than just your name and profession. Lena looked at him sidelong. Something true? Yes. Anything. Your favorite color? Your biggest dream? Why you became a nurse? Anything that will help me know who Lena Warziniak really is. There was something in the way he asked, genuine interest in his eyes, that made Lena lower her guard, just a little. My favorite color is dark green, she said quietly, like pine trees in winter. I became a nurse because my grandmother died when I was 15. During the last months of her life, the hospice nurses were like angels. I remember one of them sitting with my grandmother all night, holding her hand, singing her old Polish lullabies. It changed something in me. I wanted to be that for someone else. Damien listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face. That's beautiful, he said quietly. And your biggest dream? Lena hesitated. It'll sound stupid. Try me, he encouraged. I want a small cottage in the countryside, not too far from Chicago, with a garden where I can grow my own vegetables and herbs. Maybe some chickens. Nothing extravagant, just peace. A place that's entirely mine. Something flashed in Damien's eyes. Understanding. Maybe even a bit of envy. That doesn't sound stupid at all. It sounds like perfection. And you? Lena asked, turning the question around. Who is Damien Dombrowski when he's not rescuing strange women at weddings? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Damien Dombrowski owns a consulting firm. I help other companies become more efficient, more profitable. I travel between Chicago, New York, and sometimes foreign cities. I live in a downtown apartment with a view most people would call spectacular, but which I rarely notice because I'm almost never there. That sounds lonely, Lena said quietly. Damien looked at her with surprise. Most people say it sounds exciting. Most people lie to be polite, she replied. It sounds lonely. For a long moment he just looked at her. Yes, he finally admitted. It is lonely. Before Lena could respond, a waiter approached with a tray of desserts. Small portions of cheesecake on shortbread crust with berry sauce. Lena took one, grateful for a break from the intensity of the conversation. They ate in comfortable silence, but Lena was aware of every glance thrown their way. Natalie passed their table twice, each time slowing as if she wanted to say something but ultimately walking on. Bradley looked increasingly uncertain, his smile forced during conversations with guests. She's jealous, Damien observed quietly, following Lena's gaze. Natalie? Jealous of what? She has everything she wanted. She has everything she thought she wanted, Damien corrected. But now she sees that you have something she doesn't. A real partner who treats you with respect and tenderness, at least as far as she knows. Lena shook her head. This is just a game. Maybe, Damien agreed. But sometimes pretending is more real than reality. Before Lena could ask what he meant, the orchestra began playing another song, a slow, romantic waltz. Several couples rose, heading to the dance floor. Damien stood and extended his hand. "Will you dance with me?" Lena looked at his hand, then at the dance floor, where Bradley and Natalie were already dancing, wrapped in each other. "I'm not a very good dancer," she admitted. "You don't have to be," he said gently. "Just follow my lead. I promise I won't let you fall." Something in his voice, the certainty, the calm, made Lena believe him. She took his hand and let him lead her to the dance floor. As soon as they were on the floor, Damien placed one hand on her waist, the other holding her hand gently. "Ready," he whispered. Lena nodded, placing her free hand on his shoulder. The fabric of his suit was soft and expensive under her fingers. They began to move, and to Lena's surprise, it was easy. Damien led with such confidence that all she had to do was let him. They moved across the floor in fluid, graceful steps, the world around them blurring into patches of color and light. "See?" Damien said quietly, his breath warm near her ear. "You're a perfect dancer, only because you're leading," she replied, but she smiled despite herself. He looked down at her, his eyes darkening. "Sometimes, letting someone else lead isn't weakness, Lena. It's trust." His words hit something deep inside. How many years had she spent trying to control everything, trying to be strong, independent, never needing anyone's help? And now, in this stranger's arms, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Safety. "Lena," Damien whispered, his voice low and urgent. "Bradley and Natalie are watching. May I place my hand on your cheek? Make it look more intimate?" Lena's heart accelerated, but she nodded. "Yes." Damien slowed their dance, his right hand releasing hers to gently cup her cheek. His thumb brushed her skin, and Lena felt herself shiver. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered, but she wasn't sure if she was lying. Nothing about this was okay. None of it was real, but her body didn't seem to know that. Her body was reacting as if it were real. Their faces were only inches apart. She could see gold flecks in his blue-gray eyes, a small scar on his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened as he looked at her lips. "Damien," she began, uncertain what she meant to say. "I know," he said quietly. "I feel it too." The music began to fade, and the couple slowly stopped, still standing close, still looking into each other's eyes. Around them, other couples clapped for the orchestra, but Lena and Damien remained absorbed in their own small world. Finally, Damien stepped back, though his hand remained on her waist. "Come," he said quietly. "Let's get some fresh air. Real air this time." He led her through glass doors onto a large terrace overlooking the illuminated garden. The August night was warm, but a light breeze carried the scent of flowers and grass. A few other guests were here, but they found a quiet corner by a stone balustrade. Lena leaned against the railing, breathing deeply the night air. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for all of this. It was more than I could have expected." Damien stood beside her, also looking at the garden. "You don't need to thank me." "But I do," she insisted. "I don't know what I would have done today if you hadn't intervened. I probably would have run away crying. Instead, I just danced at my ex's wedding and felt almost happy." "Only almost?" he asked with a slight smile. Lena turned to look at him. "Damien, who are you really? Why are you doing all this for someone you don't even know?" His smile faded. For a long moment he looked at the garden, his jaw tight. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and full of something that sounded like pain. 3 years ago I was engaged," he began. "Her name was Magdalena. We met in college. We were together for 7 years. I thought she was my other half, my future. We planned the wedding, chose the venue, sent invitations. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, she came to me and said she couldn't do it, that she was in love with someone else, someone who understood her better than I ever could." Lena felt her heart tighten. "Damien, I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "The worst part wasn't that she left me. The worst part was that she was right. I'd spent so much time working, building my firm, that I'd forgotten to spend time with her, forgotten to ask about her day, her dreams, what made her happy. I treated our relationship like another business project, something to manage, not something to nurture. That doesn't excuse what she did, Lena said firmly. No, he agreed. But it taught me something important. It taught me that sometimes we're so focused on where we're going that we forget to appreciate where we are, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is be real with someone, even if it makes us vulnerable. He turned to look at her, his eyes intense in the glow of garden lights. So, answering your question, I'm doing this because I saw myself in you today. I saw someone who'd been hurt by someone they loved, someone who was pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. And I thought, maybe this time I can do something good. Maybe this time I can be the person who shows up. Lena felt tears stinging her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I think Magdalena made a mistake, she said quietly. I think she was foolish to leave you. Damien smiled sadly. Or she was smart enough to leave before it was too late. No, Lena said firmly. I was with Bradley for 3 years. I thought I knew him. I thought we were planning a future together. But the truth was, he never really saw me. He didn't see my strength, my determination, the things that made me proud of myself. He only saw what he wanted, a convenient, easy partner who wouldn't cause problems. She took a deep breath, feeling words flowing from a place of deep truth. But you, Damien, you saw me today, really saw me. You saw that I needed help, and you gave it without asking for anything in return. That's not a mistake. That's something rare and beautiful. Damien looked at her with an expression that made it hard for her to breathe. Lena, he began, but his voice faded. They stood like that for a long moment, the tension between them almost tangible. Lena could feel the pull, the magnetism drawing them together. It would be so easy to lean in, close the space between them, let whatever this was transform into something real. But before either could move, the glass door opened and Bradley stepped onto the terrace. His eyes found them immediately, and something in his face hardened. Damien, he said, his voice strained. Can I talk to you for a moment? Privately? Damien looked at Lena, his eyes asking a silent question. She nodded. It's fine. I'll go to the, restroom. But as she passed Bradley, he caught her arm. Lena, wait. She looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. Yes, Bradley. He released her, looking uncomfortable. I wanted to say I'm sorry about what Natalie said during dinner. It was inappropriate. Yes, it was, Lena agreed coldly. But you and Damien, he hesitated. Is it serious? Lena raised her chin. Why would that concern you? Because, he struggled with the words, because I worry about you. Damien's a good man, but he's very busy, very focused on his career. I don't want you to get hurt again. Anger flared in Lena's chest, white-hot and cleansing. You don't have the right to worry about me, Bradley. You lost that right when you cheated on me. And as for Damien, he's shown me more respect and kindness in one evening than you did in 3 years. So yes, it's serious. Very serious. Without waiting for his response, she walked away, her heart pounding, but her head held high. In the ladies' room, Lena leaned against the sink, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. She looked alive, energized, more than she had in the last 22 months. And it was all because of a stranger who'd stepped into her life for a few hours and made her feel valued. But what would happen when this evening ended? When they went back to being strangers, as they'd agreed? Lena wasn't sure she could answer that anymore. When Lena returned to the terrace, Damien stood alone, looking at the stars. Bradley had disappeared, probably back to the ballroom to his new wife and guests who were still celebrating. Lena stopped for a moment, observing Damien in silence, the way his shoulders were tense, the way his hands gripped the stone railing. What did Bradley want? She asked quietly, approaching him. Damien turned, his face unreadable in the darkness. He warned me to take good care of you, said you're delicate, sensitive, that you need someone who'll protect you. Lena felt her jaw tighten. He said that? Damien nodded, but then smiled slightly. I told him he was wrong. I told him you're not delicate or sensitive, that you're the strongest person I've met, someone who showed up here today with her head held high, someone who endured humiliation with dignity, someone who doesn't need protection, but deserves respect. Lena's heart started beating faster. You said all that to him? Yes, Damien confirmed, moving closer to her. And I told him something else. I told him he was a fool to leave you, that some men don't recognize treasure until they've lost it. Lena felt tears rising to her eyes, but this time she didn't stop them. Damien, I I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he said gently, reaching out to gently wipe a tear from her cheek. But I need to tell you something. Something important. She took a deep breath, preparing herself. I'm listening. Damien stepped back, putting his hands in his pockets as if needing physical distance to say what he wanted to say. When I agreed to this little game today, I thought it would be simple. A few hours of pretending, help you regain some dignity, then go our separate ways. But something changed, Lena. Her breath caught. What changed? You, he said plainly. Talking to you, dancing with you, seeing who you really are behind that mask of courage you wear. It reminded me what it's like to feel something real. What it's like to talk to someone and not want the conversation to end. What it's like to look at someone and see not just a beautiful face, but a beautiful soul. Lena felt her heart fighting in her chest. Damien, this can't be real. We've only known each other a few hours. You're right, he agreed. It's crazy. It's irrational. It's contrary to everything I believe about relationships and time and logic. But sometimes the most real things in life don't make sense. He moved closer, his eyes holding her gaze with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. I'm not asking you for a commitment, Lena. I'm not asking you to suddenly trust me with your whole heart. But I'm asking for a chance, one chance to see if what we both feel today could be something more than just pretending. Lena closed her eyes, her mind spinning. Part of her, the cautious, wounded part that had spent 22 months rebuilding her walls, screamed for her to run. But there was another part, a smaller, quieter part, that whispered something different. Maybe this is a chance. Maybe this is the beginning of something real. I'm scared, she whispered, opening her eyes. I'm scared to trust again. I'm scared to believe in something that might just be a beautiful illusion. Damien reached out, gently taking her hand in his. I'm scared too, he admitted. I'm scared I'll mess everything up again like I did with Magdalena. I'm scared that my work, my travel, all the things that destroyed my last relationship will destroy this one too. But you know. What? I think sometimes you have to risk to gain something worthwhile. She looked at their intertwined hands, then back at his face. In his eyes she saw the same thing she felt. Fear, hope, possibility. And in that moment, she made a decision. Okay, she said quietly. One chance. But we're doing this right this time. No more pretending. No more games. If we're going to try, we do it honestly. The smile that lit up Damien's face was like the sun breaking through clouds. Honestly, he agreed. Let's start with something simple. A real first date. No weddings, no exes. Just you and me getting to know each other for real. When? She asked, smiling despite herself. How about tomorrow? I can pick you up after your shift. I'll take you on a long walk along the lakeshore at dusk, like I mentioned. And then dinner at a little restaurant I know. A place that serves the best Polish Jurek in Chicago. Lena laughed. A deep, genuine sound that released the tension between them. That sounds perfect. Damien squeezed her hand. But first, we should finish this evening. There's something I want to do if you'll let me. What? She asked, intrigued. I want to dance with you again, but this time not for them. He gestured toward the ballroom. This time for us. Without a word, Lena let him lead her back to the dance floor. The orchestra was playing the last songs of the evening, a slow, romantic melody drifting through the air like a whisper. Most guests had already left, and those who remained were busy with their own conversation. Damien took Lena in his arms, but this time it was different. There was no pretending, no performance. There was only closeness, the warmth of his body against hers, the beating of his heart under her cheek. She rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you, he whispered into her, for trusting me, for giving me a chance. Thank you, for seeing me when no one else, for reminding me I deserve something better. Danced in silence, the world around them fading until there was only this, the music, the movement, the promise of something new beginning where everything had ended. The next day, Sunday, 6:30 p.m., Lena stood before the mirror in her small bathroom, adjusting the simple blue dress she'd chosen for their real first date. Her phone buzzed with a message from Damien. I'm downstairs. No rush. She took a deep breath, looking at her reflection. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of nerves and excitement. This was a new beginning, a new chapter. And this time, she was ready for whatever came. When she stepped outside, Damien was waiting by his elegant dark blue car, holding a single dark green rose, her favorite color, as she'd told him. "For you," he said, handing her the rose with a smile that made her heart race. "It's beautiful," she said, smelling the flower. "Not as beautiful as you," he replied, then laughed at his own words. "Sorry, that sounded like a terrible movie line." Lena laughed too, a little, but I appreciate it. As they walked along the lakeshore, golden sunset light dancing on the water, Lena felt something settling in her chest. Peace, hope, possibility. Beside her, Damien told a story about a funny incident at work, and she listened, smiling, laughing at the right moments. "Can I ask you something?" she said when they stopped at a stone bridge overlooking the skyline in the distance. "Anything," he replied. "What made you approach me yesterday? Of all the people at that wedding, why me?" Damien was quiet for a moment, his eyes fixed on the lake. "I saw you walking into the church," he finally said. "I saw the way you held yourself so straight, so proud, even when everyone around you was judging. And I saw the pain in your eyes, pain you were trying to hide. It reminded me of myself a few years ago. And I thought, if someone had shown me kindness then, maybe my life would have been different. So I wanted to be that kindness for you." Lena felt, tears stinging her eyes. "You were more than kind. You were—" "What?" he asked quietly, turning to look at her. "You were exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it," she finished. Damien smiled, reaching out to wipe away a tear that escaped. "And you were exactly what I needed too. A reminder that life is more than work and success, that sometimes the most valuable things come when you least expect them." They stood there on the bridge, the sun setting behind them, the lake flowing beneath them, the future stretching before them like an unwritten page. And for the first time in 22 months, Lena didn't feel lost or wounded. She felt like home. "Come on," Damien said, taking her hand. "I promised you the best jurek in Chicago, and I'm a man of my word." As they walked away together, hand in hand, Lena looked back one last time at the bridge, at the lake, at the beauty of the city she'd always called home. And she knew that no matter what the future brought, this moment, this perfect, unexpected moment, would always be part of her story. A story that began with humiliation and ended with hope. A story of strangers who became something more. A story of second chances and the courage to trust again. And as the stars began to appear in the Chicago sky, Lena Warziniak smiled, knowing that sometimes the most beautiful chapters in life begin with the most unexpected beginnings. If this story moved you, remember, the person who rescues you from your worst moment might be the one who walks into your best life. Share this with someone who needs to hear that public humiliation doesn't define you, that the right person will defend you when you can't defend yourself, that fake dating someone extraordinary can become the realest thing you've ever felt, and that sometimes all it takes is one stranger's kindness to remind you of your worth. Subscribe if you believe in groomsmen who see cruelty and step in pretend girlfriends who become real partners, in the courage to try again after betrayal, and in the radical idea that your ex's wedding might be where your actual future begins. Because sometimes all it takes is one kiss, one whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart," and the bravery to accept help from someone who truly sees you.